Hi there! Welcome to this video about Shakespeare. My name is Alex Howe, and today I'd like to explore Hamlet and the character of Hamlet as interpreted by multiple different professionals. First, I'd like to take a look at how critics have seen some of the acting performances that various actors have portrayed. Specifically, I'd like to look at David Tennant in 2009, Kenneth Branagh in 1996, and Mel Gibson in 1990, and what critics said about those portrayals. First, why don't we take a look at David Tennant in Hamlet, right here.
Conscience does make cowards of us all. And thus, the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought.
What Adam Sweeting of theartsdesk.com said about that performance by Tennant, that he mixes up facetiousness and deadpan quite a bit, but there's a lot of tension, and he often plays when he allows Hamlet to have an outburst with a lot of manic energy. By contrast, let's look at a clip from Branagh's Hamlet, and then I'll go through what the late great Roger Ebert said about Branagh's performance. Here's that clip.
Make with a bare bodkin. Who would? Fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life. But that, the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country.
Now, interestingly, what Ebert said about Branagh's Hamlet, Branagh has exuberant physical gifts, and that he was able to use mounting anger in different lines to convey regret. In fact, Ebert even said the to be or not to be speech. He says that Hamlet's most famous soliloquy is delivered into a mirror so that Branagh's own indecision, or that Hamlet's indecision, is thrown back at him. He also said that Branagh's Hamlet is frustrated, angry, and indecisive. Finally, let's take a look, as far as the actors go, let's take a look at Gibson's performance, also reviewed by the late Roger Ebert.
By a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come.
Ebert described Gibson's performance as being the opposite of the trope of Hamlet as mope. He singled out a number of things that Gibson did not do, in fact, with the character. He did not play him as melancholy, did not play him as lurking, and did not play him as bewailing his fate. His final thought on Gibson's performance was that he played him with strength, intelligence, and filled with life. How does that stack up against what Shakespeare experts interpret Shakespeare's framework for the character with? Because that's all that this really is Shakespeare's framework and how people over the years have interpreted it for that character. Let's start with Maurice Charney of Rutgers University. So Charney makes the case that Hamlet feels stuck between decisions during the course of the play, and that he's a little bit melancholy. The thing that Ebert said that Gibson did not play was a melancholy Hamlet. Then you've got James Hirsh, PhD, of Georgia State University, who examined Hamlet through the lens of this speech as well, and came to the conclusion that Hamlet is a highly calculated person, and fueled by the anger over his enemy's deception. Hirsh refers to various instances throughout the play that give Hamlet reason to believe that Ophelia being nearby in the speech, during the time of this speech, would lead Hamlet to believe that there's no coincidence that she's there. Finally, let's look at what Peter Davies of a London magazine said about the character of Hamlet. And he kind of goes over the idea that Hamlet was loquacious, and saying that Hamlet has almost half as much again to say as Richard III. In other words, this guy said 50% more than Richard III as far as dialogue. Hamlet is a warrior and a nobleman, yet he talks to lower classes, so to speak, of people in the kingdom, actors and gravediggers. Of course, the gravedigger reference there being the speech that he has about Alas Poor Yorick. That means that his Hamlet, the interpretation that Davies gives of Hamlet, is that he's a talk not necessarily that calculated as Hirsh said, or as melancholy and sad as Charney says. So what's the conclusion here? What do we ultimately have? The idea here is that Shakespeare wrote something that is not entirely open-ended, because obviously many of his plays have solid endings. But in Hamlet, what you have is a character that is a framework, can be interpreted multiple different ways. Scholars can see him different ways from each other and still see Hamlet in very different ways from how actors would choose to portray the character. Hamlet is sketching characters, is making frameworks that can be built upon. There is no defined, specific Hamlet. There are many different Hamlets throughout the course of literature, and through performance. What makes it beautiful is that it allows for artistic interpretation, which creates the idea that what Shakespeare made in characters like Hamlet stand the test of time due to their durability and flexibility. Thank you for joining me in this video. Have a nice day.